Hello everyone and welcome back to DiabloCast, your Diablo 3 podcast. As always, I am Dennis Force Duhamel, and with me we have Kevin Sixen Carlino.
Hey guys.
And Tyler ScyberDragon Milness.
What's up, everybody?
And how are we doing this week, guys? Not a lot of Diablo news. Anything else going on in your exciting lives?
Sick. Finals. Good stuff.
How about you, Tyler?
A break from work so I can actually do this podcast this week.
There you go. Very nice. And actually, Kevin, our buddy over here, Kevin just had a birthday, didn't he?
Yeah, buddy.
That's exciting. Did you get anything?
Yeah, I got sick. It was a great birthday present.
Awesome. Well, happy birthday to you. So into actually pertinent discussion here. This week we're going to be talking about a few things. First and foremost, we're going to be talking about the all-year history, the Blizzard and Condor review from Machinima. We're also going to be talking a little bit about mercenaries, also known as hirelings or followers. Discussion about a New York Times article recently posted about Diablo 3. And then we're going to be going a little bit into the encounter system. So with that said, let's go ahead and get right into our first topic, which is going to be the all-year history Blizzard and Condor recap from Machinima. Alright, so there was recently basically a series of videos. I believe there are 2 videos up currently, which just gives a general recap of Blizzard and Condor and their early game experience. Now, this is kind of akin to the 20th anniversary video that was recently released. Now, I know that you personally, Kevin, are looking forward to the third installment of this video. You mind just basically letting people at home know what the first 2 videos more or less went over?
Sure. So, as the post says, I was on YouTube getting my daily dose of Rebecca Black and Rick Astley when something interesting caught my eye. So basically,
daily dose of Rebecca Black, right?
Daily.
Wow.
Daily. So every day is Friday for me, right? All right. So basically, Machinima is doing this. I guess it's like a YouTube web series kind of a thing, where they kind of go over the history of different video games or video game events. Like I think that it was like one of them was the 1983 crash of video games or something that I watched that was actually pretty interesting. So they go over companies and events and games and different cool stuff, and I noticed that they did one for Blizzard Entertainment within these last 2 weeks. And the first episode is all about how Blizzard came to be, basically like the 45-minute video that we saw in the 20-year anniversary, but it kind of had a different spin to it, and it had a completely different interview with Frank Pierce, and Mike Morhaime. And basically, it was the 2 of them standing there talking about how things got started, how they met each other, how they started the first couple games and cool stuff like that, which kind of segued into the second video, which started off with Warcraft 1, how they became the first company to have an online RTS. Mm-hmm. Basically, they were going up against. Yeah, I keep saying basically. That dude was right. All right, so they went up against Command & Conquer, which I believe had been the very first RTS game out ever. So the 2 of them, Westwood Studios and oh no, it wasn't Command & Conquer. It was Dune. I'm sorry.
Really? I thought it was Command & Conquer.
I believe it was actually Dune.
Oh. Okay.
I guess I'll probably have to go back and watch the video again, but I'm almost 100% positive that it was Dune was the very first game ever. So Blizzard released Warcraft 1, and that's probably about the first 5 minutes, and then the last 10 minutes of the second video goes on about Blizzard North, Condor, and Diablo 1. So anybody who considers themselves a Diablo fan, or even a Blizzard fan in general should definitely go ahead and watch this.
Nice, very cool. And I guess specifically pertaining to what we're all about, Diablo, people should check out specifically the second episode of that.
Right.
Which is called Blizzard Entertainment Part 2, Harvesting Resources. And again, that's a video available through Machinima. You can find a link to the post on Diablo fans about those 2 videos with embedded videos there as well, so you can just watch it there. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. They go over just some of the Diablo 1 basically history and its upstarts and all of that. Mm-hmm. All right, so next we're going to be moving right on to the New York Times article that was recently posted. Now, I think this came out was it earlier last week or later in the week or something like that? But anyways,
just a couple of days ago, I believe.
Oh, really? Yeah, so there you have it. Just a couple days ago, New York Times article. Basically, one of the writers for the New York Times spent some time at the Blizzard headquarters and actually going through and getting to play the game. And one big thing to note about that is actually a discussion that he had with Jay Wilson, in which Jay Wilson basically said that I don't have the exact quote in front of me, Actually, I think I do. He says, we're definitely in the home stretch. We're crunching. This is when the magic happens. I thought the magic happened in the bedroom, but apparently happens during crunch time. But no, seriously, though, that's an exciting quote. It seems like we've been getting confirmations almost like, once a month or once every couple of weeks that they're really nailing and they're really pushing for this 2011 release. And not even within a weeks of this podcast recording, getting another confirmation from Jay Wilson saying that they're in the home stretch and they're crunching.
You guys know what that means?
No.
Sign of the beta. Sign of the beta.
Sign of the beta.
No, but I mean, in all honesty, memes aside, it could very well be a sign of the beta. I mean, home stretch, crunch time, that they're obviously not like astronomically far away from the release. They're really looking to hone it in this year. What do you think, Tyler? You think that that's still within our grasp, if you will?
I mean, I've believed it was 2011, from last year, and I don't see, with how much they're doing and how much they've talked about it, and there's been little hints everywhere now that 2011 is definitely what they're aiming for, and I believe that that's when we'll get to play it.
Yeah, and how about you, Kevin? In terms of the beta specifically, are we hoping for the beta? Maybe what? I mean, personally, I'm thinking late May, and then maybe a little bit after that, maybe into June. But what about you personally? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm pretty much looking at the same exact time frame. I mean, if they really are shooting to get this game out by 2011, obviously sometime in December, beta would have to begin around early summer, so late May, early June, even sometime in mid June. I mean, but it really can't be much later than that if they're still 100% trying to shoot for a 2011 release.
Yeah, so there you have it. So anyways, go ahead and check out the New York Times article. Definitely a pretty interesting read. Nothing groundbreaking, pretty much just a recap of things that we already know. But actually, touching on what we just mentioned, talking about the beta and talking about its release and its time frame, something I would like to touch on. I know this has been brought up quite a bit recently on different forum posts and on different message boards. We've talked before about how the game hopefully is coming out in 2011. There's going to be a 6-month beta, great. But 6-month beta, what does that mean exactly? Some people are saying that we're going to have the beta access 6 months straight through until like a couple weeks before the game comes out. Some people are thinking, okay, there's going to be 4 weeks of beta, 2 weeks off, 3 weeks of beta, 4 weeks on, just some kind of segmented schedule. What about you, Tyler? What are your prior experiences, or what do you personally feel that the beta is actually, how it's going to run?
I'm sure there's going to be downtimes during the beta for sure. It's not going to be, continuous play. But I feel pretty much the entire 6-month beta is going to be testing. I don't see why they would have a 6-month beta and not use the entire time. I know a lot of people have been saying, there's not too much to actually test with Diablo compared to StarCraft or World of Warcraft, where there's a lot more to it. But it's still a game that needs to be tested, and if they're going to allot this time, they're going to use every minute they can to try to get it as polished as possible. So I see no reason on why it'd be any shorter than that if the release is still going to be 6 months from when it starts.
I was in several of the World of Warcraft alphas and betas, and at least not that I remember, there wasn't any downtime. But for StarCraft 2, they just broke it up into 2 different phases. I'm almost positive it was only 2. So they had phase 1, which lasted, I don't even remember how long, couple months, and then in between phase 1 and phase 2, they had about a month gap where they basically said, okay, beta's going down, and we'll let you all know when it comes back up. So, I mean, it's actually good that you bring this up because I'd completely forgotten about that. So whether or not they do that for Diablo 3, I guess, is completely up to them. But, I mean, it's definitely possible. I mean, obviously we're going to have some downtime because they'll be just setting up the Battle.net server for Diablo 3 in general. So, I mean, some Battle.net downtime for patches and maintenance and other stuff like that is a given. But as far as breaking it up into phases, I mean, that's definitely possible.
Yeah, and that's actually something that I was going to mention as well, because I was in the StarCraft beta, and I vividly remember the downtime, and I'll tell you why. Because I was playing the beta, I was having a great time, I was making my videos, that's when I started with all the videos and stuff, and then, beta goes down for a week, and then 2 weeks, and then 3 weeks, and then it turns into a month, and I was going nuts. I was so frustrated. I kept just watching replays of the game,
yeah.
And I even went so far, I don't want to bash other games, but I went so far to buy other RTSs that I would have never bought just to get an RTS fix. I bought some, I bought Red Alert, I like Red Alert 2, I bought Dawn of War, one of those one of the games in the series there. And these are games that typically I wouldn't have necessarily purchased, but that downtime was absolutely killer for me. So I'm hoping I'm hoping that they don't have much downtime for Diablo 3, because then I'm going to end up purchasing every crappy action RPG on the market. In all honesty, there are a lot of good games coming out, so I'm sure I'll be able to bide my time, and they'll have StarCraft as well. But I don't know. It's interesting. And something else that I've actually considered is, the possibility of they're going to have the beta. They're going to be giving away beta keys and doing whatever they're planning on doing. Fan sites such as Diablo fans are going to, likely be getting beta keys. I'm just going to say that because fan sites typically do. And then they're going to be having their own personal giveaways. But besides that, I'm wondering if there may be, those kind of giveaways for beta keys, and then maybe downtime, and then possibly an open beta. Any thoughts on the possibilities of an open beta from either of you?
I honestly don't believe they're gonna do an open beta. I think that would be a mistake. Somebody actually brought that up in the Battle.net forums just recently, and I mean, yeah, I guess it's cool for a stress test, but I think an open beta would be a big mistake, because a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, cool, Diablo 3, and it's free. Let's all play it now." And then as soon as everybody sees bugs and glitches and stuff like that, there's going to be a lot of rage and a lot of QQ, as most of us would put it. And I mean, there are a lot of people that just see beta as sweetness. I get to get my hands in the game, which, I mean, I definitely do, but I definitely also do my share of testing and reporting bugs and all this other good stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean that's definitely an interesting point of debate. People talking about, well, what's the point of a beta? And people will argue, obviously, overall the point is balance and to fix bugs. That's kind of the overarching issue and the point of having a beta. But then, some people are going to say, well, they want to balance PvP, and then people will argue, well, PvP is not a focus, and then people retort, even though it's not a focus, they still don't want it to be retarded. They want some semblance of balance in the game. So it's pretty interesting. Tyler, you got any kind of personal opinions on what the beta should be, or what you think it may be in terms of its purpose and its goal?
I mean, being me, and I wish I could be playing the entire game right now. I mean, obviously I want as much as possible, but I understand, they have their own things that they need to test and figure out. So I'm assuming it's going to be most of Act 1 and just kind of playing through the generics of the game and making sure all the systems that they have in place are working out fine.
Yeah, and that seems reasonable, and that seems like a pretty logical thing. I think one big thing that they're also going to want to test is the difficulty of certain things. For example, the difficulty and the time requirement for leveling artisans or for acquiring high-level gems. They want to see if they're too extreme. You have a small group of internal testers, and sure, they're playing the game and they're devoting a lot of time to it, but it's still a small group, and different people have different play styles, and you're going to have those hardcore people who are going to be playing 15 hours a day legitimately. Maybe possibly even more. In all honesty, people forgo sleep to play longer. But balancing those people with the average player who works 9 to 5 and comes home and then has a girlfriend or a wife or family and friends that they hang out with, and then plays just for 1 or 2 hours. They want to balance those two kind of player bases to see where's a happy medium where it's not going to be super easy for the hardcore player, but it's not going to be incredibly difficult for the casual player. So I think that figuring out those I guess time frames for acquiring certain things is going to be a part of the testing as well. So that almost legitimizes having an open beta to get as many people to test as possible. But I think overall, it may not be that necessary.
I think my biggest question for beta, since it is going to be so limited, is like high-end stuff. I mean, like you said, figuring out how long it takes to get these high-level gems and everything. If they're limiting it to one act, obviously we're never going to have that time to get to those levels. So I wonder if that's something they're not concerned about, if they can test internally. But, I mean, Nightmare, Hell, even high-level PvP, I mean, if we're only getting to play the first act, what kind of PvP balancing can we get without all of our skills and everything like that?
I'm sure that they'll end up giving us pre-made characters, something along those lines. So basically, they'll just go ahead and say, okay, on the website, there's an option for you to create a max level wizard, witch doctor, all the classes, and go ahead and test them in PvP, or go ahead and test them throughout Act 1 if they end up only doing Act 1. So at that point, we can test all the end level or end game like skills and spells and help them balance that stuff. So I don't really think that would be an issue.
Sure. Something else to consider too is that there's the possibility that they're going to have the beta and they're going to have maybe even the first 3 acts, but not storyline wise. They're just gonna lift the story out of the game, give us the scenery and the scenario, and probably a limited version as well. We could go into Act 3, but if I guess if you can think of it as a path, right? You've got your main path in terms of the acts, the main areas you travel to, and maybe there's branching areas off of the main path that's where a bulk of the story is going to come from. You go into this particular dungeon, for example, or in Act 3 you get to a place that's going to bring you to Act 4 specifically. That maybe they'll cut off those areas. They're going to be very telling signs. Like an example, if Act 4 is legitimately inside of hell or in heaven or something, they might want to cut that out because that'll kind of give away the story. But if they can keep kind of the main branch of the acts, take out the story itself, and then just allow us to play the game and it's kind of in the bulk of the game, but with the story removed, then that would provide us with the opportunity to get to a higher level and to still acquire that high-end gear. Because, gear's just randomized anyways. From what I understand, at least, you can get the same gear off of some fallen imp that you can off of a boss, right? And it's just like a higher % chance or something off the boss to get better gear. Is that not the case?
It sounds logical to me with the randomization that they're doing, yeah.
Yeah, so that I feel like that's a possibility as well in terms of what the beta content would be. Or, like Tyler said, it could just be Act 1 and that's it.
Going off of what you said, it would make sense that they basically just remove all the quests and say, here, go ahead, have at it, and just play through the game. I think we talked about this a little bit last week, but yeah, basically, I think I mentioned what you had just said, that some basically locations are going to give away the part of the storyline, like if they were going to hell or going to heaven or whatever. So, keeping that in mind, they could just easily cut out the quests and just let us play through the game and grind and play whatever random quests, kind of sideline quests that there are to play. And something else that I wanted to mention, I know we're kind of jumping around topics, but back to the open beta that you had said, I just wanted to relate this to the StarCraft 2 beta. In Phase 2, it wasn't really an open beta, but they were just giving out beta keys like wild. The Facebook, their little Facebook promotion that they were doing, basically they posted up a picture of like 15 beta keys a day and said, okay, copy it down and add it to your account, and whoever can do it the fastest can go ahead and use the key. So. And actually, I know that we were kind of in the New York Times article, and we kind of just jumped right back to a whole beta discussion, but I don't really think that there was anything else left to mention in the Times article. So I guess that kind of sums it up. Basically, sign of the beta.
Sign of the beta.
Home stretching it.
That actually sounded really creepy, but
yep.
What else do we expect from you, Tyler? So anyways,
creepy dragon.
We're going to next jump into discussion about mercenaries and or followers. Now, there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of questions all over the forums and pretty much everywhere. People wondering, how are followers going to work in Diablo 3? Are they even going to be there? And basically, what is their role going to be in terms of their interaction with the player? So there's a couple of things to say about that. First and foremost, we don't have any concrete knowledge as to what the follower system is going to be like. We know there's going to be followers in the sense that you'll pick up a quest, there'll be guys in the quest, and they'll follow along with you. For example, like we saw in some of the Blizzard demos, you pick up a quest from Kayn, and there's 2 little archer dudes who follow you around until they die. And then we also saw last year during BlizzCon, there was the Demon Hunter picked up the quest from the blacksmith, and he followed you along until the completion of the quest. So we've seen that before. We know that's going to be in the game. But people are wondering, are there going to be characters that I can gear up? Are there going to be characters that are going to basically follow me around permanently? Now, this was obviously a big part of Diablo 2, and this is something that is very likely still going to be in Diablo 3 as well. I know that back in, I think it was 2008 is where the quote was pulled from, right, CyberDragon? When the article that you posted about followers?
2009, actually.
Oh, okay. So yeah, 2009. But there was basically a post saying that, hey, there's going to be followers in the game, and you're probably going to be able to give them equipment and different weapons and different armor. But since then, there hasn't been much discussion. But recently, I know that you had got a response tweet, basically, Tyler, from Bashiok saying that, it kind of, and with a winky face saying that the follower system was still unannounced. But then literally just about an hour ago, Bashiok talked about how, the followers have been a part of the game since before its announcement and that they have a very solid direction for them. So with that said, I mean, besides sign of the beta, I really feel like with that last statement that just went up on the Battle.net forums from Bashok, that there's going to be followers that we can give gear to. Like, does that seem reasonable? I feel like that's pretty much
mercenaries.
Yeah, exactly.
Followers, actually. Come on, let's get the terminology right.
Well, I mean, actually, you know what? I think that's good that you say that, because I mean, I would personally classify them in two different categories, because people that we can pick up, or NPCs that we pick up upon quests, I would have to call them followers, you know, because obviously they're just following me, and same with the artisans. But people that we can hire to come along with us until they die or until we fire them, I would definitely call them mercenaries.
True. But this isn't real life. This is a video game.
Yeah, well, apparently
Kevin,
a lot of people have problems with me comparing this to real life.
Too funny. But I mean, in all seriousness, though, I mean, that seems, I don't know. Besides, you know, okay, we have that distinction. Yes, thanks for clearing that up for us, Kevin. But but basically, just pulling back to Bashok's most recent statement to this thread. And the thread was worded, it's a word on the follower system. And yeah, Bashok literally said it's been a part of the game since before announcement, and that they've got a solid direction for them. So Tyler, do you think that this is kind of a clear sign that, hey, you know, we're going to have these guys, we can equip them, they're going to follow us around, the mercenaries are going to follow us around, and there you have it.
Definitely. I mean, I don't see any other way of him talking about this if it's really just those little things that we've seen in the gameplays of people following us for, 1 minute and then dying. I think the odd thing about it that's so weird, though, is that Blizzard has been so tight-lipped about the system. I know it's been asked numerous times throughout the years. And I have to give credit to, hopefully I'm pronouncing this right, Lord Isom, who actually linked to the video that I watched for the quote. And it's 2 years old. And Leonard Boyarsky really kind of talks in depth about the system that they have planned. And I don't know if it's something they haven't talked about anymore because they've changed it, or what the deal was. But when Leonard talked about it 2 years ago, he was talking about how, you'll be able to equip them and gear them with armor and weapons, but also that they have a lot more story to the game. They're not just people you run into the city and hire. They might actually have their own quest that you almost like follow them with and do that to unlock them. Maybe it's sort of like the artisans where you have a quest with the jeweler in order to start using the jeweler. I would assume it's something like that with these characters, and once you get this quest completed, then they kind of offer their services to you to help them. But
sure. Sorry.
No, that's all right. And then just also with that is that Leonard said, again, this was 2 years ago, so a lot of this may have changed, but he said at the time the plan was to have them more styled towards play style, to where you're going to have, I would assume, almost like counterparts to the actual classes. The example he gave was, if you're a barbarian, most likely you might want one of these guys who has ranged, because that's where you're weakest at. He said, but you also have a choice of choosing like another tank, so there's just two of you tanking through this stuff. So I think, obviously there's something they've had planned. It's definitely going to be in the game. At this point, the real question is to what extent and how far are these guys going to, how much we can customize them.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that, like that these we'll call them mercenaries for the distinction between.
Thank you.
But for the distinction between a follower and a mercenary.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. These mercenaries, that they're going to have a backstory, and there's actually going to be something behind them, because when I first saw the Demon Hunter, I was like, oh great, it's our follower. Crappy backstory, archer sits in the back. No, seriously though, it's pretty cool actually. I like the idea that they're gonna do that. They're gonna try to flesh out these characters to just make them more than some some guy you pick up in town that follows you around creepily, kind of like Tyler actually.
Well, I definitely think that this is pretty cool as far as adding it into the storyline goes. But let me go ahead and talk a little bit about how they might function. And I guess I'll play devil's advocate with myself. So, I'll kind of spit out both sides of it. I remember in Diablo II, before it had come out, I was psyched because there were these people that you could pay money to, and they can come around and fight with you. That was unheard of from Diablo 1,
So wait, sorry, but there's gonna be people you can pay money to that are
mercenaries
that are gonna play with yourself.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Yes, devil advocate is going to play with myself. Right.
I heard Tyler try to jump in there, but
So basically, Mercenaries in D2, I thought it was awesome, and I mean it is pretty cool. And if they do something like you were just saying, Tyler, and they go ahead and add it into the storyline, I think it would be awesome as well. Because I mean, there's really nothing cooler than having somebody just come around and fight with you. It's basically a second you. But the bad side about that is, and I believe it was Grug that mentioned this on the BattleNet forums, was that essentially it turns every single class into a summoner class. And what that means is you can base your builds or your entire focus around your summoning or summons. And I guess in this case it would be a hireling. So I mean essentially you could and I guess it's kind of cool that you could do that, but it kind of kills the distinction between all the classes because the witch doctor, as far as I see it, and maybe a little bit of the demon hunter, is supposed to be the summoner. And same with Diablo 2. Basically, it turned every single class into a summoning class. I mean, you could make a gold find barb where your mercenary would just kill everything and you would just pick up the loot.
That's an interesting point. I guess the only thing that I would say is it's also going to pull back to the strength of these mercenaries. Like, are they really strong enough to be able to wipe everything out? I mean, maybe that was the case in Diablo 2, but maybe part of the alterations that they're going to be doing with Diablo 3 is that they're not going to be kind of all-powerful beings that can destroy everything while you just run around with magic find gear or gold find gear or whatever the case may be. But that is definitely a pretty interesting point. Obviously, we still have no idea as to specifics in terms of how they're going to implement these. Hopefully in the coming weeks, as we get more information about the systems, the game systems, Followers is going to be one of those, very likely. I can say that pretty safely. And at that point, we're going to get some kind of further clarification about that.
Oh, definitely. I mean, as soon as that system goes live, I mean, I know that we'll do a podcast that's dedicated to that system because, I mean, we're pretty much running out of systems as it is right now. So, I mean, we'll definitely go into it a lot more in depth when the time comes. But as for right now, I just wanted to throw this out there also, that it in essence also doubles the party size. That's something else to think about.
Yeah. And I guess one quick note, because I don't want to talk about this forever. We'll save this for the next podcast. But in terms of arena, are they going to be allowed in arena? I'm almost going to say right off the cuff that the answer would be no.
That's true.
I mean,
yeah, I'm going to say no.
Having AI run around with you in arena seems kind of silly. Although I like the idea of kind of a horde invasion arena where you have to fight off waves of enemies. But this is something completely different. I feel like in the 3v3 scenario, we talked about the PvP arena so much in the last week's podcast. I don't think that that's going to be allowed, I guess I could say. All right, so next we're going to be moving on to some discussion about the different systems in Diablo 3. This is something that we've been trying to do periodically on the podcast here. This week we're going to be talking specifically about encounters within the game. And what do we mean about encounters? Well, it's what it sounds like, pretty simple stuff. It's going to be how you interact with the monsters and the environment within the game. Specifically, just a quick kind of summarization of what we're looking at within encounters in terms of improvements from Diablo 2 to Diablo 3. Fights are supposed to be a lot more tactically involved. Basically, we need to pay more attention and use more tactics in fights. There's going to be different monster types, more monster types than we saw in Diablo 2. There's also going to be there's many different more categories in terms of the type of monsters we're going to come up against. And just a kind of quick wrap up of it, there's going to be these big hit type monsters. There's going to be frenzying monsters, monsters that transform. There'll be swarming type monsters, and then also summoners. And then lastly, there's something to kind of think about is the fact that the AI is going to be a lot smarter. They're going to be more selective in terms of their targets, targeting maybe the weaker person in your party when they're low on health. And they're also going to be kind of using their advantages to your disadvantage. So something we did mention in prior discussion about the systems is, say you have a really slow-moving, high-damage projectile that's easy to dodge, but normally you could dodge it no problem, but then you get a monster in that same fight who slows you down and makes it difficult for you to dodge it. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about in terms of the AI being more intelligent in terms of fighting. So I guess specifically we can start off discussing the kind of tactical side of these encounters. So Tyler, you want to kind of give your thoughts on that in terms of the types of tactics that may be involved within our different fights in Diablo 3?
Yeah, so with these encounters, what Blizzard has done is essentially created these different monster categories. And what they've done with these categories is they've learned when they lump certain categories together, it makes the fight more challenging. And, in a hack and slash action RPG like Diablo, that's where, the meat of the game is. So they're really trying to expand on that. Some examples would be, they have a monster that has projectiles, and for the most part, it'd be easy to skirt around them, come up to them, and kill them real quick. But when they add that with swarming monsters are going to surround your character and immobilize you, essentially. And so now those projectiles are going to have that much easier of a chance of hitting you because you can't get out of their way to attack them first.
Yeah, so specifically onto that, it's going to be the case where as you play through the game and you go through these different encounters, you'll have experiences where you will learn, okay, this monster does this, and then this monster coming in, this demon or whatever coming in does this, and those two things work well together. I need to make sure I take out this target first, kind of that specifically. So that's definitely pretty interesting in terms of the tactical sides of fights. You're definitely going to have to pay a lot more attention to your environment. I know that so much of Diablo 2 was just like click, 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 like everything just blows up on the screen. But I feel definitely it's the case that in Diablo 3, you're going to have to be much more mindful of your surroundings.
I actually think that that's a really good analogy. As far as Diablo 2 goes, the one encounter that I keep thinking of is Blood Raven, and basically Blood Raven was, okay, here I am, and let me just summon a bunch of monsters that are just going to walk around and kill you if they possibly can. I mean, there really was no strategy other than, okay, just ignore all the monsters, get around them, and make sure you keep hitting Blood Raven. I mean, I think something in Diablo 3 that's going to be a lot more strategically created. I think that'll be great because, I mean, it makes the game fun. It makes you have to think a little bit instead of, okay, run around, click, all right, here's Blood Raven, move, all right, and then basically once Blood Raven dies, all the monsters die. So it's like you can just completely ignore them.
Yeah, no, it's definitely really cool. And I guess that's actually going to bring us right into the discussion of the tactical side of it. That's going to bring us right into the different categories of monsters. Now, again, I did that brief summarization right at the introduction of this episode, or this portion of the episode rather. So we're going to have big hit type monsters, and those are going to be the guys swinging around those giant two-handed weapons, very slow, very easy to dodge. And then there's going to be the frenzying, the transforming, the swarming, the summoners, and that's kind of, I guess that's a brief summary of everything we've seen thus far within the game. Now this is, I really like this particularly. I like the fact that they're going to have this distinction between different monster types. And I like the idea of these different monster types that do different kind of things. Like I mentioned initially, the big hit monster with a two-handed weapon. We talk about frenzied monsters. Okay, so that's going to be something you have. They start off in a normal state, and then they go into a frenzy mode. And typically with the frenzy mode, there's going to be an audio or visual cue. They're going to get larger and red. I guess an example would be, what was it, the 1,000-pounder, I think was in one of the gameplay footages. That's the guy who got turned really big and just went nuts. Yeah. So that would be an example of a frenzied monster. Transforming monsters, that's going to be something a little bit different than the frenzied. I believe it's the cultists who they're doing their little summoning thing. They're hitting their shaft on the ground, and so immature. They're hitting their staff on the ground, and then they turn into this kind of demonic form of themselves. And I guess that could be almost considered frenzied, but that's a little different because with something like a transforming monster, you have that opportunity to disrupt that transformation so that they don't go into that more menacing form. And then we talk about swarming. We can take a look back at the one of the, I think it was the first gameplay footage, was that barbarian walkthrough, and he comes up onto he walks across the small little bridge, and then he comes up onto this little square area, and just from all sides there are these swarming demons coming up the side, and that's one of those things where you're just kind of overwhelmed with numbers. I guess the same thing would be kind of attributed to the Fallen as well. And then lastly, we've got the summoners, and that's going to be, you've got this kind of overall weak caster type class in the back, and he's trying to summon up additional demons, and he's going to keep doing it unless you actually take him out. So all these different types of categories of monsters and demons within the game, putting them together in different fights, and again taking their strengths and using them to try to overwhelm you, that's going to be a big part of how the encounter system is going to work in Diablo 3. And then now, I guess the next big thing we could really talk about is the selective targeting, the idea that they're going to be kind of picking guys off who are low on health or guys that are weaker. I know that with a prior discussion with you, Kevin, when we talked about rushing in a prior DiabloCast, this is something that actually would come into play, where if you're a lower level character, you have to be really concerned that the AI within the game is going to distinguish, hey, this guy doesn't belong here. He's much less powerful than he should be for being at this level in the game. We're going to target him and try to take him down quickly.
Right. I mean, exactly. So this intelligence level of the monsters is really going to play a big part in how you're going to go about dealing with specifics. Maybe not even specific. Maybe just go about dealing with the entire game. Say me, you, and say the three of us are doing a playthrough, and Tyler. Sorry to pick on you, Tyler, but you're a couple levels behind. So, so I mean, you might be a couple levels behind, but maybe you're a demon hunter, and so it's okay for you to run up close and drop some traps and get away. Whereas maybe I'm a wizard and Dennis is a barbarian. So maybe they'll distinguish between, okay, Kevin, yeah, even though he's a ranged attacker, so I mean he has a little bit less health and he isn't that agile. He's kind of just sitting in one spot, kind of spamming at us. Tyler is a couple levels below, so maybe we should take him out before dealing with Kevin and Dennis. Yeah,
that's definitely pretty. I would say that's pretty accurate in terms of how it looks like it's going to be playing out, and that's a good thing. I mean, obviously, as the gaming industry develops and technology becomes greater, the AI for our opposition within the game is going to get more and more intelligent and more difficult to deal with, and as such it becomes more fun. It obviously never reached the level of a human opponent, and that's why so many players have a kind of a PvP focus, because that's where a lot of the challenge comes from. But I guess that's another conversation. Now I know you specifically, Tyler, there was an article you had mentioned talking about the different monster archetypes, and this was from a post way back when, I think back in 2009, talking about one-offs. You mind going into a little more detail about that?
Well, it's just kind of an expansion of what we've been talking about, and the fact that Blizzard themselves has ideas on what type of monsters, what they do, how they function in the game, and how to pair those up with different people or different monsters to make them more challenging. Some actual examples of names. I mean, we didn't get exactly what they're doing, but internally the names they were using for them are things like Sleeper, Alarm, Beehive, Linked, Sapper, Thief. And it just shows you that, they have this all planned out. They know how these monsters are acting and how to give our fights more depth with, just the hack and slash motion of it all. Personally, with all these different categories, all we have is names to go by, but I think some of them are kind of more obvious on to what type of monsters they are. For example, the Beehive. To me, that screams something where there's like a base unit that spits out smaller units. We kind of had this in Diablo 2. We had the nest that would spit out the little bird creatures that you had to fight. We've actually also the maggots. We've also seen this actually in the Diablo 3 trailers with the wasp that spit out smaller wasps from far away.
Spitters.
Another
Please
one.
Don't.
All right. Go on,
Another
Tyler.
one would be the Sleeper, which I'm assuming is kind of like the cultists, where if you can attack them before they awaken, I guess, that they're a lot easier to kill off, but once they are awake, they're going to be that much harder to kill. And that's kind of how the cultists are. If you kill them before they transform, 1 or 2 shots. Once they transform, you see they're a lot more difficult. Linked is going to be probably 2 monsters that kind of work in conjunction with each other. If you're attacking one, something happens with the other. Sappers, I'm sure, are going to be types that kind of immobilize you somehow, either lower your defense or stop your movement. And Thief, I guess we've actually seen the Thief, who actually runs around and drops loot the more you hit him, because he's stealing stuff from people. So
That Thief.
Thief.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I definitely I just think it's going to be really interesting, and I'm sure that there are more, I guess you could say character types or AI types that we haven't really thought of, or that hasn't been introduced to us through any of the gameplay footage we've seen. And again, putting these things together is going to make going through the different acts and going through these different encounters much more difficult. And that's the whole point. Difficulty is where fun comes from, because it's about figuring out these encounters where you learn how to deal with them and evolve with the game and make it through safely, basically.
And I think something else that you kind of touched upon, Dennis, was not all of this encounter system is depth through monsters. A lot of it is actually the characters and skill choices now. They've definitely upped the amount of, with the 7 hotkeys, it's going to be a lot easier to, cast a bunch of different types of spells at the same time. With Diablo 2, the sorceress was kind of OP'd, a lot of people said, because of her teleport skill, but now every class has some sort of mobility skill that they can use to help, fight these disadvantages of these harder monsters, or there's, different decoys and mirror images and just a lot more tactical skills as opposed to just finding the one skill that did the most damage and spamming that over and over again.
Yeah, so it's definitely safe to say that things are going to be much more interesting this time around. And that's just, again, that's the case with the industry as it evolves over time. They have the capabilities to make things more interesting and once more difficult. All right, so now we're going to be moving on to the poll of the week now. Just a quick summary of last week's poll. Last week's poll was asking how often will you PvP, and we had I guess it was relatively close. First place in terms of what you guys basically told us your opinions were. It says maybe once I'm done with PvE. So that was actually that was the number one with it. It was just about 31%. So a lot of players actually who voted at least aren't really that big into PvP, or it's definitely a side note to PvE, and I guess that would probably be the overall sentiment of most Diablo players in general, since it's a PvE focused game. Second place was a good balance between PvP and PvE. That came out with about 29%. Third place was every once in a while with 26%. And then in dead last, we had never screw PvP at 6%. So those guys are idiots. Tyler, was that you? Did you vote for
He must have.
PvP?
Screw PvP. I don't care what you guys have to say.
All right, so I know that you have some information about this week's poll, Tyler, so why don't you take it away?
Yeah, I mean, with pretty much the only news we have with the follower system, that's kind of where we're focusing this next poll on. And it's basically how we want followers to work. There's a lot of debate going on right now, so we decided to put it into a poll, get everyone's opinions. Right now, our actual choices is going to be basically the exact same way as it was in Diablo 2. You have a couple gear things that you can put on them. They follow you around. I'm sure they'll have one skill of their own that kind of helps you choose which one you want to have. The second one is expanded gear slots. Basically, if you want to put boots, gloves, belts, pants on your followers, hopefully pants this time, so not walking around pantless. Another choice is a skill set where you can actually choose, I guess not skill trees since they don't have those anymore, but levels of skills that you actually get to choose and cater your follower to how you're kind of playing your character. The next choice is going to be both of those. You want full gear, full skill choice, and really customize these followers almost as much as you're customizing yourself. The next choice is going to be basically you don't want followers at all. You just want, what we've seen, the little small guys that follow you around for 30 seconds and that's it, because you feel that the other follower system is just not working for Diablo.
All right, so there you have it. That's going to be this week's poll. So go ahead and head on over to DiabloFans.com. Make sure you're signed in. You do have to be registered for the site, and then you can go ahead and vote for this week's poll, and that'll be right on the right-hand side of the main page. And that pretty much does it for poll this time. For poll, that pretty much does it. We're now going to be moving into the questions of the week. And remember, every week we're going to be answering some of your questions in the community. You can leave those questions on either one of our Twitter accounts. It's going to be twitter.com/forcestrategy or twitter.com/thechatgem. All right, and our first question comes from Carl. I'm not going to say anyone's last name. I'll just go with first names. So the first question from Carl is, he asked, do you remember the Siegebreaker boss battle from way back? My question concerns the part within the fight where the boss picks up the low HP barb and bites him in half. Is that still in the game in the current build, and will other bosses also have ways of brutally dispacting us rather than slapping us and we fall over? Well, I think that's really cool, and that's actually going to tie back to, we've been talking so much in this podcast about the encounter system. I really like that they added that kind of brutal dismemberment of any character when they're on low health, either getting stomped on or pounded into the ground or bit in half. And I definitely think that that's going to be a big part of boss encounters in the game.
I actually think that's really cool also. I mean, it like we were talking about before, it definitely adds to strategy because, I mean, who wants to see their barbarian like pancaked and then eaten, right?
And I think it's also, I mean, I'm pretty confident it's still in the game. There's no reason to remove it. And if that's something that they're willing to show us, considering everything that they still have secret to surprise us with, I can only imagine what else bosses are going to do to our characters, especially when we get to Diablo and how he's going to rip our body in half when he grabs us.
I've been sitting here imagining it, not pretty pictures. Like
Gruesome.
poles and bad
No,
things.
there's no more pole talk in this podcast. I'm sorry.
I'm hoping at one point my body gets squeezed and my head pops off like a tube of toothpaste and my guts just go squirting out.
That is absolutely too much. All right, so the
Mortal
next question
Kombat. This is
is going to come from... stop cutting me off. Hard to do a podcast. Jeez. Next
Stop
question
talking.
coming from... Next question coming from Tio, and he asks, what do you think? Are we going to have an armory page for Diablo 3, something like we have for WoW? What do you think, Tyler?
Definitely. I don't see how they can not have an armory page. I mean, with gear being so important to Diablo and people wanting to see what gear everyone's wearing, I don't see how they could not have an armory with this. And I'm pretty sure the armory will also include, skill choices, trait choices, and everything we need to know about other people's characters.
Sure, yeah, and I guess also we can talk about the possibility of the mobile armory. I know that's something that they kind of not too long ago added for World of Warcraft, so I would have to imagine that that's something that they would carry into this game. Again, pulling back to the idea that they take their experiences and the things that they've learned in this prior RPG game of theirs and they're going to bring it into the upcoming one. Kevin, do you think mobile armory sounds like something we'll have?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that there's going to be an armory for Diablo 3. Just flat out. I mean, Bashak has said earlier that they have got some pretty cool stuff lined up for the community site, and I don't doubt that this isn't something they're going to do. And that in mind, I mean, I can't see them not doing kind of mobile tools like they have already for World of Warcraft.
Yeah, just so long as they aren't causing any car accidents, I think we should be all set.
Yeah. I mean, just 2 days ago, they added guild chat to the mobile. Well, they don't call it mobile armor anymore. They renamed it to mobile or remote app or something like that. So basically, it's like an all-encompassing app for smartphones for World of Warcraft. So I mean, definitely going to be something for Diablo 3. I don't doubt it.
There you go. All right, next question we're going to answer comes from Louis, and we're going to actually answer this question because there were about 10 questions in the same vein. And he asks about rune words. What he says specifically is, will you be able to arrange runes into words as before? And no, runes are, as we've talked about in the past, runes are functioning 100% differently. It's a complete, I almost said 360, but it's a complete 180 from what it used to be. Because if it was a 360,
It would have done right back to where it was.
There you go. So yeah, it's going to be a complete 180. Runes are nothing like they were in the past. Runes are just meant now to augment your skills, as we've talked about pretty exhaustively in the past. So why don't you just go watch a couple of those past videos before asking these darn questions here. All right, and the last question is going to come from David, and he's asking specifically about graphics, and what he says is, give us your thoughts on the graphics. Do you think we'll see some, for example, DX11? Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's pretty safe to say, I mean, World of Warcraft supports DX11, or at least it's going to, if not already. Same with StarCraft 2. I know that both of those games also already support, include 3D support for the NVIDIA kind of 3D cards. So, I mean, it's yeah, this is speculation, but it's safe to say that it's going to be the case. I mean, I don't see it not happening again.
Yeah, in terms of graphics, and people have also asked a lot about system requirements for the game, and we can just say, well, just take a look at StarCraft 2. That's probably going to give you a ballpark figure of what you're looking at in terms of what is necessary. But specifically as far as to how far they're going to push it, it seems like DX11, and as you said, 3D support makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I actually believe that it's also going to offer support for DX9, so people still running, like XP are going to be able to play the game. So I don't really see the system specs, the minimum or required specs, I don't see them being too high. So I'm pretty sure anybody with a somewhat recent system is going to be able to play the game. And that in mind, it doesn't mean you have to go spend, $1,000-$2,000 out there on a brand new awesome system because it's completely unnecessary.
Yep, there you have it. All right, guys, so that pretty much does it for this episode of DiabloCast. So for Tyler and for Kevin, this has been Dennis. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode, and, we'll see you next week, and hopefully we'll have something actually exciting to talk about. Say something.
Kevin, did you bleeped? What happened to Kevin? Kevin, are you muted?
Oh shit! I'm muted. I did it.
Ah.
I've been talking this whole time.
All right, guys, that about does it. So take it easy. We'll see you next time.
All right, guys, take it easy.
Bye, everybody.
Guy's a creep.
You guys not talk to Russians ever? They don't know what brownies are, by the way, in case you guys care.
What?
No,
Wait.
they have no idea. I asked this guy who was Russian if he wanted a brownie, and his response was, I don't understand. What is brownie? Cake? Is cake? No, it's not cake. It's like denser. Well, fudge. Is fudge? No, it's like in between. So, cake fudge? Yes, that's what brownie is. Cake.
Yeah. Did you just do that?
Yeah,
That's badass.
that's my cricket chirp.
I can't do that. I can do a
Sorry.
bird, but it's gonna be loud.
I can hum and whistle at the same time, too.
Seriously, do it.
All right.
That's crazy.
What the hell is that?
He was rubbing
It's a
his little.
UFO.
He was rubbing his hind legs together like a cricket,
No.
and he just made noise.
Give me your rent.
Yeah.
You damn drug dealer, I know you ain't got a real job.
Wonder if he can hear us.
Want to buy some drugs?
Hey, Jamal. Jamal, let me get them cokes. You got some coke?
Every class in Diablo 3 is a DPS class.
That's my DPS sound.
I was gonna say DPS sound effect.
Yeah. Because if you're a healing class, it's...